All right. At tomorrow, it will be the so-called Freedom Day. The Freedom Day is just a fallacy. If we all were, as Black South Africans, and in particular Black South African natives, were to speak about our personal experiences and our stories, you would know that there is no freedom for Black South African natives at all. There are people who speak on our behalf. They are the ones who go to talk shows. They are the ones who get to be placed in our marches to speak on our behalf and misrepresent us. Uh, Hardly any of the issues that are spoken about South Africa internationally are the truth. Hardly any of them are the truth. Most stories that are spoken about South Africa are lies. The very Mandela history was a lie. The very issue of black on black violence was a lie. The success stories under Mbeki, Mandela, and them were lies. In all these things, even the Freedom Charter was a lie. It was not written by Black South Africans. There was no thorough consultation. Actually, the document itself was written by a Jewish person. All right. So the information, or rather, what was put there, was long decided before the smokescreen called consultation process, which happened in Kliptown. The people who were in Kliptown remember that most Black South Africans did not agree to that document. So there was no process itself to actually verify or confirm if many people were in agreement with that. Even if the many people in attendance, they would have agreed. That didn't represent what Black South Africans at large actually stood for. Because even the attendance, you can select people that you prefer to actually go and be in attendance and mass to force your policy to pass. That is not representative of Black South African thought, or rather beliefs in that particular matter. The fact remains the document was not written by Black South Africans. It was written by Jewish and white liberals who already had a new world order agenda against South Africa. It seems the decision was to make our country to be a test piece for ideologies of the world, just like we have been made a test piece of AIDS medication. We saw ourselves being test pieces in the 90s. They gave us medication which deforms the body. Our black people died horrible deaths, deformed horribly by medications from white people in the West, which were known already to be bad medications, or ARVs, that they never used on their whites. They used them on us. People who died in the 90s, early 2000s, and them, they died having been completely deformed in their appearance because of these medications. And here's the truth. The ANC and the IFP, they I'll count those two political organizations because they are the ones who were in these fake Codesa negotiations, which were never negotiations, because the constitution of South Africa was written by the same white and Jewish people who wrote the Freedom Charter and imposed it as though it was ratified by black people, fronting especially the Xhosa people in those lies. In essence, now you start seeing that the Boere had valid facts in looking at what transpired there as treason. It truly was treason, and that document was not written by locals. It was written by Jews and whites who came from Europe. Let's just say the Boere were already in South Africa for something like 250 years, But these ones who wrote the Freedom Charter were people who were coming to South Africa because of the gold that was received earlier on. Therefore, they fought even with the Boer to take over South Africa and rule South Africa. So the English, but it wasn't the English alone. It is Europe at large which came to South Africa to own South Africa, to protect European trade routes and European looting of African resources via South Africa, because it looks as if it is South Africa doing those things, and then African countries think that, okay, it is okay because South Africa is saying the good thing to do in terms of trade is to do this and that. But South Africa is not South Africa. It's not black South Africans who are taking decisions about South Africa. It is Europeans who are stationed in Cape Town, Sandton and the likes, fronting black puppets like the ANC, especially let's say the ANC, whom they front as if therefore what the ANC is saying is what black South Africans are saying. The ANC has never said anything that black South Africans have been saying or ever said. Everything the ANC advocated was brought from external cultures, meaning there in London where they escaped, that's where they got all that information, that's where they brought all those policies from. Therefore, to advocate the interests of white socialists of the UK and Europe, Jewish communists, and even white liberals. That is why in 1994, more than 250,000 white liberals voted for the ANC. But they are not to be blamed for the things that they have transpired in the country. All right. So now these are our realities that we live in. These are the truths that we are faced with. So black South African natives have never had a say since 1879. Everything you've heard being said about South Africa does not come from us. What comes from us are these march and marches and the likes, which easily get branded as xenophobia. And to our shock, black Africans are running with that story that we are xenophobic because you guys are selfish pigs like these white people. Because the reality is, if you believe you must just walk into our countries and we must clap hands, then there was no reason for yourselves to complain about colonialism, because it was a phenomenon of white people just walking into your lands and taking over your countries. You said that is wicked and you fought against it. So now, but you now yourselves are doing the same, and you are walking into our country and we must clap hands just because you are black. That is colonialism itself. So we must fight against it itself. The Ghanaians are fighting against Nigerians, but when we are fighting against Ghanaians in South Africa who are here illegally, Ghanaians again rise and get offended. Actually, it's not even Ghanaians, it's the Ghana government, which is the same as the South African black government, which is the same as the Nigerian black government. Those things are puppets. We saw Nigerians revolting against the election fraud. The same election fraud happened to South Africa. The same election fraud happened in DRC Congo. The same fraud happened in Kenya and many other areas of South Africa, the world, and even Latin America, in order to push down our throats white liberal interest of Europe, paralleled by the New World Order agenda that is. So that's the situation. We've never had a voice. The ANC has never been the representative of black South Africans. You can go back to videos of 1985 and before. You will hear black South Africans speaking about the ANC. You'll hear black leaders speaking about the ANC. They are clear it's not our representative. They're saying it's just part of the voices of black South Africans. But we've got many voices, so the ANC cannot claim to be the sole representative of the voices of black South Africans. The people who made the ANC to appear as the voice of black South Africans are white liberals, because they clearly were protecting their interests, because how they operate these wicked, evil satanists of Europe, the white colonialists, they front certain blacks and then they work from behind them. And then in South Africa, they will be working behind the ANC using their courts. All the courts of South Africa are controlled by the by the DA. The DA is a white liberal colonialist organization which hates black South African natives, West Zulus. It doesn't even want to see Zulus. So the constitution which is running South Africa was written by them. It was written by them. So it was given through this puppet of theirs called Cyril Ramaphosa, with the safeguards of Rolf Meyer. The same Rolf Meyer that Cyril Ramaphosa is now sending to the USA to try and defend white liberal interests there, because Donald Trump is on the conservative side, and unfortunately the white conservatives are showing huge signs of racism, unfortunately, and Nazism, and they have misdirected Donald Trump, because originally, especially in the first term, Donald Trump was not like this. But you can see even there in the United States, Candace Owens and many people who used to love Donald Trump have turned our backs from him. I still stand with Donald Trump on other issues, especially in his fight against the NWO agenda. I stand with him on Israeli matters, etc. But on the issue of Nazism and white supremacy, he has lost me completely. All right, he made Boere of South Africa, or rather, white farmers to be, or rather, he legitimized a non-existent phenomenon and called it white genocide. There's no white genocide in this country. Black South Africans are dying like flies, and we are made poor intentionally. It's engineered by white capital. That poverty, it's got nothing. It is less to do with the ANC. You can use your logic, Donald Trump. If it is the ANC which has caused black South Africans this poverty, why are your white people not that poor? Why are your white people not that poor? So, and then why are you not speaking about rand manipulation? Why are you not speaking about the truth of what happened just in 1996 into the so-called democracy, where certain committees were set by Cyril Ramaphosa and Thabo Mbeki? Those committees, like Energy Board, had zero black people who qualified right into BEE. Your whites are saying BEE has destroyed this country. Where? They benefited from BEE. BEE has benefited whites. Whites are only sitting at only 4% poverty. Black South Africans are sitting at 64% poverty. I am an engineer. I'm unemployed. Many black people pass university and college with far greater grades than your white people. But your white people always get jobs and we don't. How about you speak about those issues? Because those are realities in South Africa. Here in South Africa, don't like in us, and I'm not undermining black Americans. I don't know what is happening there. But here in South Africa, we go to school, we study, and many people pass their matric, and many get great grades in matric. All right. But even so, the system run by your whites ensures that it selects white people first, and then Indians and Asians, and now it has added black foreigners, and it keeps on pushing black South African natives, especially Zulu people, down. So though the actual people who are being destroyed and genocided are black South African natives, it is exactly us who got infected with AIDS deliberately to wipe us out. So why don't you speak about the what genocide? You're speaking about a white genocide. Where the hell is that? All right, and then you're gonna listen to the statistics of those white Nazis telling you, but the rate of deaths against white people is more than the rate of deaths against black people. Don't just look at the head count. Yeah, well, how about you also then entertain the context of crime when you are looking at that way? Because you always need to also bring in the reasons why crime is happening. All right, so now there's poverty as one of the reasons, the major reasons why crime happens. All right, before we get to jealousy and all the other factors which cause crime. So in terms of poverty, so do you expect a person to rob poor people more than they rob people with money? So who's got money? It's white people. So therefore, logically, criminals will target people who have got more money. It is white people. So therefore, the murder rates will be higher to white people because they've got money than to black people. It's got nothing to do with white genocide. It's got to do with the fact that they are racist whites holding all the money to themselves. and causing great poverty, and therefore the thugs target them more than they target us. In any case, if they are robbing us, what are they going to get? 10 rands. What is 10 rands in US dollars? 50 cents. Oh, so is it worth their while? Whereas in a white person, they're going to get how much when they rob a white person? So what's the incentive? Go rob a person with more money. That's the reason. All right. So anyway, so all I'm saying is that there's no freedom for Black South African natives. Freedom Day is a fallacy, which cycles around that fake story of a Mandela, a father of our nation. We don't have fathers who are sellouts. We don't come from such cultures. We come from cultures of honor, faithfulness. We didn't even our contracts were verbal before your white people came with their thuggery and introduced written contracts. We don't come from a culture of written contracts. All right. We come from a culture of a spoken word is the contract. Because we come from a culture which feared God. We had no jails in our culture, Donald Trump. Jails came with your whites when they taught our blacks to be criminals. All these government employees being paraded on TV and them, they were taught by white people to be that. We've got personal experiences of white people trying to make us to be bribe proficient, to receive bribes. That's how they damage those idiots. And now those idiots cannot do anything against those white people because they are now they are puppets with masters because the white people have got their scandals. Yet those white people are criminals themselves and they're committing greater crimes. All right? But these idiots did not even have systems to investigate the very white people or to keep the information which proves that these whites are the ones who taught them bribery. Our culture comes from Ubuntu. We frowned on bribery. We frowned on criminality. Your white people taught our blacks to be thugs. It came from white people, which was learned from the fact that your white people came to be looters and thugs, taking our resources to your west. So that then cascaded to black people in Africa. We don't come from a culture of thuggery. That is why we detest Nigerians and Somalians and Ethiopians. All right, because those are not our cultures. That's not black or Bantu culture. All right, so black South Africans are sitting at 64% poverty. When we are fighting against illegal immigrants, we get called all terms violent, xenophobic by your white people and black socialists. Black socialists also hate us, don't worry. So now your white liberals and they are white socialists and your Jewish communists and them, they are calling us xenophobes. All right, and then for fighting for ourselves in our country, were you not supposed that Donald Trump to be supporting us black South Africans as we are fighting against illegal immigration? Why haven't you said anything about this issue? Because you are fighting against illegal immigration in your country, but you have made it to be racial, sadly. And then in South Africa, we are faced with far worse than what your USA has ever been faced with. In South Africa, our population is 60 million, but we are sitting with more than 30 million illegal immigrants. You don't have that in your country. You don't have that in your country at all. All right, we are sitting with that. And you're not speaking about that. You're talking about a non-existent, non-issue of a white genocide. You are a racist then, Donald Trump. You have disappointed me. So what I'm saying is very simple. There is no freedom for black South African natives. The DA hijacked our elections in 1994 and returned this country to their 1940s, 19 whatever's objectives. They were never fighting to help the so-called freedom fighters. They were using them to get rid of the Boere. The funny thing is that the apartheid of Boere actually disturbed the colonialism of your white liberals. So the Boere, funny enough, got used to delay the interests of white European liberals. So they were fighting against Boere not for the freedom of black South African natives. They were fighting against Bure to remove them from power so that they, as white liberal colonialists, take over. This is what Steve Biko saw, and he died. All right, so who killed Steve Biko? I believe he was killed by Helen Zille people, the white liberals. Don't believe he was killed by Bure. What was in it for Bure to kill him? It must have been the white liberals, the Europeans, who killed him. They hate black consciousness blacks. These are proud, highly educated blacks. They don't want people like that. Your white liberals want blacks who obey whites or who prosper as helped by whites. If it is self-determination, they hate that. They don't want an independent black person. They want a black person who's prosperous according to their terms. Your economy, your Western economy, has got nothing to do with freedom. It's got everything to do with white superiority. It demands that you must make white people prosper whilst you prosper. That is not true competition. That is colonialism. All right. So that's what your people and your USA and the whole Europe is doing here in this black South Africa and Africa at large. All right. So we know no freedom. That is why we're sitting. There are hundreds of Zulu doctors unemployed, but there are all these black punks from Africa being employed. There are all your white people get jobs immediately as doctors, and them. My Zulus, passing far better than your whites, are jobless. Being doctors, they're jobless. They can't even be nurses. You don't need high IQ to be a nurse. They can't even get jobs as nurses. Can't get jobs as police. Can't get jobs. What was the other much? Or as teachers. Your white liberals are bringing all these Zimbabwean teachers to replace our Zulu and black South African teachers in our country. All right. Zimbabwe does not even have a single university which beats 12 of our best universities in South Africa. But somehow, because of white liberal interest, colonial globalist, open border interest, they bring the Zimbabweans and say they are better than us. According to what? According to what measure? Because school-wise, we are far better and greater than Zimbabweans. We pass far greater than them. We pass far greater than whites. But in South Africa, we've got universities like Stellenbosch where the whole lecture hall is lily white in black Africa. How does that happen? It's got nothing to do with passes. And since when is best based on having most money? When did brain capacity equate to being rich? Because in these so-called best schools of whites, those are schools of rich white people. So where does this science start from or come from, which is saying the rich people are the most intelligent? Because reality is, in those schools which are rich, whose students or scholars get taken to best universities, those kids come from rich white families. So are you now telling me there's a new science which is saying the people with money are the more intelligent? Because that's the formula of success in South Africa. There are great black South African schools which produce many matriculants. They are not rich schools, and they don't make it to those universities which are lily white. Merit does not exist in South Africa. White supremacy is the core. That's the order of the day in everything. That is why the private sector is run by lily white males, pale white males. Oh, how is that? Is it because they are more intelligent? According to what? Where? How can you prove that? Show us the statistics. How do you prove that? Because in brain capacity, your white males are not defeating or beating my Zulu people at all. All right? So there is no freedom in this country. There are those Ramaphosa puppets with all those green energy, white liberals and white socialists behind him. That they are the same people who are taking Israel to ICJ. That they include Jewish liberals. So Jewish liberals are behind Ramaphosa taking Israel to the ICJ. All right? So I don't know where would they begin to call it anti-Semitism, because this Ramaphosa person we did not vote for, who was imposed on us by DA white liberals of Europe and DA Jews, he doesn't represent us. He was imposed on us. We didn't vote for him. Right? So now, how do you blame us, Black South Africans, for decisions of Europeans which are represented by the ANC of Cyril Ramaphosa? These are not our decisions. It's not us who are saying these things at all. Instead, most of Black South Africans, whatever hatred they have against Israel, they were taught it by your white liberals and white Jews and Jews and black socialists on TV. They were taught. It's like indoctrination. In ancient history, our ancestors were close friends with Israelites. We are Kush here. This is Kush. We've got no history of animosity with Israel. But these Jews who come from Europe are nasty. As nasty as the French, as nasty as the British, as nasty as all the European colonialists. They're nasty. And all these things that they're doing here in South Africa, they make me realize that there is merit in so-called conspiracy theories, which are saying the whole French Revolution itself was formed by those guys, that combo, with a Freemason identity. All right. That's the hearsay. We were not there in 1700s, but their deeds currently prove what is said about them to be true then, because they are doing exactly the same here in South Africa. They are formulating systems they disrespect our black monarchs. Do you know a white country in Europe which has got a monarch but he reports to a president? Do you have that? We are here in Africa, there are monarchs here, and your white people groomed these black socialists who don't represent us to formulate systems which undermine our kings. African life is kingdoms, not socialism. White people have an agenda against our kings. The DA hates Zulu kings. The DA is white liberals and Jewish liberals. So those are the people who are defining the conversation in South Africa and deciding what is the talk point. They are the ones who are propagating their propaganda on media for the international audience. I will tell international people, you have never heard black South Africans speaking for ourselves. That's the truth. As for you black foreigners, just go back to your countries and fight your governments. You can't bedevil us for fighting against our government. It means you guys deserve the governments that you have. So just like we are fighting our governments, you're supposed to be fighting your governments. Flooding our countries with yourselves is called colonialism. You are invading us. Same way that white people were invading our countries. So if you are invading us, then we've got to fight you. All right. So at this moment, we don't want to have black on black bloodshed, because it is going to be to the advantage of these white colonialists which are using you. Just go back to your countries. You are not bad. You are not hard workers. You are not better than us. So go back to your countries. That's where you belong. Go and fight there and leave us in peace. All right. We don't need you. So go back to your countries. Black foreigners, go back to your countries. We have got no need for you here in South Africa. Go home. That's the call. That's the call. So go home so that we are able to deal with colonialists in this country of ours, whilst you are dealing with colonialists and your black government rogues who are puppets of the same in your countries. Go home so that we can get our freedom, because you are our oppressors yourselves. All right. Thank you.